Welcome, everyone. We do have lots of room at the front, so feel free to pack in. I'm so excited to be here and to welcome you to our Reisman Spotlight session on how to grow your business and your revenue. And also a special welcome to all of our virtual attendees who are watching today. Before we get started, I'd love to tell you a little bit more about the Reisman Awards. They are our annual customer recognition program where we get to highlight the incredible work that our customers are doing, all of you. And we've been offering this award since 2017, and we've awarded over 39 law firms. I'd like to encourage everyone to apply for these awards. I read through every single submission. It truly is one of the highlights of my job, and really excited to jump in. So my name's Taylor Leckie, and I'm our customer marketing manager here at Clio, and I have the pleasure of interacting with our customers on a regular basis. So whether that's through customer calls, our customer community, the law community, or through ClioCon and our Reisman Award program. But today I get the extra honor of moderating this Reisman panel. So the purpose of today's panel discussion is really to spotlight two of our incredible winners from this year and learn how these firms have achieved incredible growth, both from a solo attorney perspective and a mid-sized firm. So huge warm welcome to our panelists today. I'm thrilled to introduce Brian King, the founding and managing partner of King Law, and Enrique Dross, the founder of the Dross Law Firm. So before we get started, we're going to show you two quick, amazing Reisman videos, just so you can get a little bit more context before we jump into the discussion. And then we'll have a couple minutes for audience questions at the end. So first up, we have King Law.
It doesn't matter where you are. There is more people who need attorneys than there are attorneys out there. Who has the passion to be able to take on that next client? Who is that person who is willing to do that extra to make sure that next client is taken care of? If you can find that person, you are going to grow many times over. Hi, I'm Brian King. We're here at King Law offices in Forest City, North Carolina, one of our 20 offices across the Carolinas. We've been a Clio customer since 2019. King Law offices, for better or for worse, has been my life since it started. I grew up about 5 miles from here. My dad worked in a mill. My mom was a teacher assistant. Personally, becoming a lawyer was something that was really above any opportunities I thought I had available to me. We started King Law offices in 2002 in one room over a bar in a place where the population was decreasing every month. And the average family income is $30,000. So how do you have a successful firm out of that? How do you have a firm that grows to that? It's because you understand that and you adapt. Because guess what? That person who is just struggling to make ends meet, they need a lawyer. We take care of our people. We take care of our community. You keep finding good people and they will take care of your clients. And those clients will make sure that you're taking care of their friends. That's how growth happens. We couldn't be where we are right now without Clio. We were a $4 million firm when we started at Clio. We're a $15 million firm now. Every Thursday, we bill 5,000 clients and bring in over $300,000 per week. Clio allows for 20 different offices and 60 lawyers with 60 different personalities to be on the same page. The kind of growth that we have is because there's people who need our services. We don't grow to take business away from another firm. We grow to take care of clients that aren't being served. Growth is a natural progression of being good at what you do.
And next we have the Dross Law Firm.
I was supposed to be a failure. I was supposed to be that statistic. I grew up in the ghetto. I was in foster care for most of the time. I was running the streets, getting in trouble. I was arrested, charged as an adult, and went to Rikers Island. I knew if I wanted to break that cycle and change my life, that it needed to start with me. My name is Enrique Dross III. I run the Dross Law Firm, which is based in Manhattan, New York, and I first became a Clio customer in 2022. When I was charged as a juvenile delinquent, I felt I had a very terrible lawyer. He barely saw me. I would tell him things about my case. It was never brought up in court. Back then, I had no idea what was going on. That's part of the reason why I became a lawyer is to help kids in those situations, to make sure they have strong advocates. When I speak in court, I make sure they're heard. What made me start my own law firm is New York City or New York State, I would think the whole country, is lacking somebody with the actual lived experience that I have to educate the judges, the lawyers, to change the system. So the fire that I have comes from not only personally going through it, but knowing how the system works. Since starting my own law firm, the first year we were able to generate almost $500,000 in revenue, double the law firm, and have almost over 150 clients. My long-term vision is to change law regarding child welfare in the United States entirely, starting with New York. And Cleo's definitely gonna be there supporting me along the whole ride. My firm represents hope. Who would think a foster child, juvenile delinquent, and somebody who was on Rikers Island would be a lawyer? There are thousands of children who are in those situations today, and they feel lost. I hope I can be that beacon for them so they can feel inspired and motivated to change their life and do things better.
Woo! I love these videos. I got goosebumps, and honestly, working with Arike and Brian over this summer and getting to know them truly has been a highlight of my year. It's been so much fun collaborating with them. So let's jump into the discussion. So before we jump in, I think it's really important that we kind of level set on what growth means to you, just because growth can look so different at each firm. So whether that's, obviously we all want to generate revenue, but what else does it look like? Is it increasing headcount, expanding offices, just getting more matters in? What does that look like? And also for all of our virtual attendees, I'd love for you to jump in as well. And how do you define growth? So Arike, if you want to start us off.
So growth to me means expanding my impact on my client base. You know, there's a saying that I live by, it's a motto. You may not be able to change the world for one person, but you'll be able to change that one person's world and they live in. So it's not necessarily about having so many clients, it's about what can I do for that one client that I currently have. So that's growth to me.
I love that. Thanks for sharing.
Rick, I love you. I have 150 employees, 150 families that rely on King Law. In July, our payroll was over $1 million. Growth has to include taking care of clients, because if you're not taking care of clients, it's impossible to grow. But I don't apologize and for this session to talk about that. Yes, it's a money-making venture, and it's important that all that hard work that you do, that you guys do every day, that you're taking care of. So yes, I think growth includes making money, and I don't apologize for that.
But I know you wouldn't. Okay, so you've both also commented on your ability to really empathize with your clients and how that has really been a strong pillar in your growth. Can you both expand on that?
So, you know, I think maybe most of us attended the yesterday's session where he talked about what business is a lawyer really in. And we're in the business of trust. And I think empathizing with your clients, it's about understanding not only their legal issues, but who they are as people. What are their wants? What are their needs? What are they scared of? What do they like to do? You know, getting on a call with them and speaking about your case is one thing, but have you ever asked them, what are some of your hobbies? What do you look forward to next month? How are your kids doing? Those are things that I do with my clients. And it builds a certain level of trust that just makes the attorney-client relationship much different, because they trust and believe that I know what I'm doing, and they trust in the guidance and the advice that I'm giving them.
Brian?
I mean, I tell our team all the time that phone call that your client is making to your law firm is the hardest phone call that they'll ever make in their life. Because what they're saying is that no matter what problem that I got myself into, or what situation that I'm in, I can't do it myself anymore. I mean, that's a privilege to be able to be on that other end of that phone call. And if you do that, that's why first ring is so important to me. That's why that first about where it's not, this is how much it's going to cost you, this is what you're going to go through, all these things. The first thought has got to be like, that sucks. I'm sorry you're in that situation. Man, I can hear it. That you have called the right place. Because that trust happens in that very first moment. And it happens when you say, like, you know what? I care about you. You know, I'm going to be gone. And when you build that up, not only does that client become yours, and I don't care if it's downtown New York City or it's on the mountain of North Carolina, what you're building in that trust is in that person, but it's in all the people that's going to be reflected from that person. And you do that, you build trust, the rest of it's easy.
And what would you say is the most important thing that you did? I know it's hard, it's a loaded question, but one thing that you did that really did help grow your practice?
I would say for me, it's leveraging my personal experiences, being in foster care, being in the juvenile justice system, being in the criminal justice system, using that and combining that with my professional expertise. You know, being a lawyer, I was a former prosecutor at one point, and when I speak to my clients, I come from the vantage point of, I've been in your shoes, I get you, I understand. And sometimes I find myself sharing stories with them, because like Brian said, these calls that they make, they're seeking help. These are some of the most difficult times in their lives. And our job is not only to help them in court, but it's also to calm them and put them at ease out of court. You know, lawyers are like unofficial therapists, I believe, right? I think everyone can agree with that. So it's just leveraging your experiences and making the client feel comfortable and that they can trust you.
And Enrique, you mentioned when you first started your practice, you obviously were building trust with your clients, but you didn't have a process in place. So can you kind of expand on that and how that really helped you take on more clients and actually help more people?
I mean, when I started my firm, it was a disaster as far as processes. You know, I had a Microsoft Word sheet, and I would put different pages for different clients and different time entries, and manually added at the end. I mean, it was horrible. And then Clio came into the picture and kind of made that so much easier for me. Clio is really like an office on the go. You know, I tell everyone that when they ask about Clio. So it's been a big turnaround, big difference for me. Things are much more streamlined, they're more organized and efficient.
And Brian, what about you?
Well, I never had Enrique's shoes, and I don't think I ever had his style. But I have been in that spot where it was me, you know, that one room over the bar that we talked about in that video. And people ask me, like, how do you go from where that was to where I am? And there's probably a lot of people that are somewhere in that journey that are out here today or watching. And I would say it's that same word. It's trust. Because right now, when they come to your firm, they're coming to see you. But if you're going to grow, you've got to be able to find the people you can trust. And I look out here and I see Kimberly, I see Debbie, I see Patrick, I see Frank. I mean, these people, what I had to learn, the hardest thing, was to get out of the way and trust the people around you. Hire the people, and every one of the people that I just named, and you guys might have heard at the Grand Ole Opry, they'd run through that wall for me because I'd do it for them. And when you have that kind of trust, then you can expand. But it's hard to do because as an attorney, like I said, not only are you a counselor, a lot of times you're that, you know, you're that knight coming in to save the day, and realize you can't do that and scale your firm the way that you want to do. So you first have to trust. And trust means letting people make mistakes and realizing that, hey, sometimes this thing sucks. I don't have to write that policy. Kimberly can write that policy. John can take care of that issue. It's hard to do as an attorney, but until you can do that, it's impossible to scale. But once you can, you're the lid to come off.
And Brian, for you, I mean, you mentioned in the video that you started Clio with $4 million and you've grown to $15 million. What does that sustainable growth look like to you? What is like responsible growth?
You know, once you realize that you can replicate, then the only thing that's going to hold you back is you. Clio makes it so easy to be able to do this. Now we can determine like what town do we need to be in, where can we be. We know exactly what Clio can do in terms of setting that up procedurally. We send out 5,500 bills every Thursday. And that's going out to across 3 different states. Really, it's going across the world. And we have team members. We just have our first team member from Germany. But we are completely B2C. Our clients are people. And a lot of those people are, like I said in the video, making $30,000 for their family income. And we've got to be their most important bill. And Clio makes that so simple. If I don't get paid within 24 hours of that Thursday, I'm probably not going to get paid. So you have to build in procedures to make that happen. But once you do it and you trust that system, then you can continue to grow and expand that. And I still feel like a startup 20 years later. Where we're going and what we want to accomplish, it just keeps going forward.
I think that's such a healthy mindset to have when you want to always be a startup, because it means you want to continue being innovating, continue looking for inspiration, talking to people. So Brian, you touched on this earlier, but you mentioned that you have to be open to making mistakes. So I'd love to learn from both of you. What lessons have you learned along the way while growing your practice, and what mistakes have you made that you'd be willing to share with the audience so they can learn from?
Well, some lessons that I've learned that expands on that trust. I think that's a big component of what we're talking about here, is the relationship should be more than attorney-client, in my view. It should be a genuine attorney-client personal relationship with your client, because there's going to come times where the law may not always be on your side, the facts may not always be on your side, and you're trying to explain to this client that situation, and who they're going to point the finger at first is their lawyer. But if they trust you, they believe in the work that you're putting out, then it's easier for them to accept whatever the outcome may be, or be more at ease with the explanation that you're giving them. So that is very important for long-term success of a law firm, as well as client satisfaction, having genuine relationships and just overall caring about them as individuals, not just as clients.
Brian?
Gosh, there's so many mistakes. 20 years of mistakes and still fighting. That's our next T-shirt. And we do. Every time we make a mistake, I think we turn it into a T-shirt and say, like, this is what we're going to do to not do that again. My mistakes, unfortunately, now are $1 million mistakes. I remember one in particular that you guys, I see a lot of people that are general managers and decision makers for firms. And I came up with a brilliant idea. Called it the preferred payment plan, because I was like, our clients can't afford us, right? You guys understand that our clients cannot afford us. That's not a luxury that they have. Nobody has, $40,000 in their back pocket to pay for their divorce. So my plan was, well, I'm just going to do a preferred payment plan, and they're going to pay a flat fee every month. Okay? Brilliant plan. It was a disaster, a nightmare, and we were so far ahead as far as our AR balance. There's still an AR balance. That's probably been 6 years ago. But I have such awesome team around me that they trusted me to do it, and I trusted them when it was time to close it. And you have to have people around you that will tell you no. You have to have people that a visionary like me, somebody who literally lives 10 years in the future of the firm that I'm going to have instead of the firm that I've got, that they can say, like, wait a second, what about this? And I know John's told me, he said, Brian, you've made me more money than I ever thought that I could make. He said, but I can tell you when I say no that I mean it. And I've trusted that. And during 20 years of practice together, he's told me no probably 6 times. And every time I've listened because it was the right decision. And you need to have a John. You need to have a Kimberly. You need to have somebody who's willing to say, not now, not right now, or and be able to check those. And who are just completely there for you when you, when you wreck that tank.
Yeah.
So.
And we have, this is a packed room. We have about 9 minutes left, so I'd love to pass it over to the audience to see if there's any questions. And someone's going to be running around with a mic as well. Do we have any virtual questions?
We do.
Awesome.
We have a virtual question from Nathan. He is wondering, how are you managing change and getting others on board to adopt new technologies and procedures?
Can we take it? I saw Lee Taylor actually had one of our T-shirts on yesterday. Some of you guys may be in a process where you're looking at Clio. Am I going to go with Clio or am I going to go somewhere else? For us, that was a huge decision. At that point, King Law was, I think, 55 people. And it was a big change coming up. And we purchased Clio, and it was 6 months later before we were going to go live because I wanted it to be right. Because you guys know, I can make a decision, but it isn't going to make a bit of difference if a case manager in an office that I'm not going to be at is not going to be able to follow that. So we made a huge launch of it. We got everybody a T-shirt, red T-shirt, stay calm and Clio on, right in the right font and everything else. And we said, I'm not going back. We're going to make this change. It's going to happen on January 1. And we're not going to keep the old program live. You're not going to be able to access your old files. Well, if in an emergency, we're going to make that, but you're going to have to go through some doors to get that because I'm closing every back door. Because when you're willing to make change, and if you're going to work for King Law, get ready, it's going to change. And we get everyone ready. We give them the resources they need, but we close the back door. And I think that is so important because if you don't, your attorneys are going to still be doing the back door. We've been paperless since 2006. You come to our offices, you're going to see clean desk, you're going to see a monitor. Why? Because I want that client to think you're the only client that we have, at least in this moment. I want to be surrounded by stuff. People know when I come in that I expect that this is what it's going to look like. There's no back door. There's no other way I'm going to do it. And so change is something that you have to be ready for. You plan, you get ready, and it's full speed ahead.
I agree with that. I think change for me as a solo practitioner comes down to being prepared and understanding why the change is needed, understanding the pros and the cons of it, and just making sure I educate myself in whatever's being changed, and I adapt to it. Because as lawyers, we always have to adapt to change. Laws change all the time. Software changes, technology changes, so we always have to be ahead of the curve. And I think just being prepared is my takeaway from that.
Yeah, being prepared and being really adaptable. Okay, I see some other hands. Yeah.
This is for Mr. King. Congratulations on the rapid growth of your law firm. 50, over here, thank you. 50 to 150 employees in 4 or 5 years, is that what you said?
Correct.
Can you give us some insight or strategies on how you experience that level of rapid growth?
Yeah, it's, what they say, that you have a 20-year overnight success. This summer, we had 36 interns, law students. I basically taught a section of law school during the summer. Next summer, we've got 40. Our long-term plan, I recruit starting in high schools. We're hitting undergrads all around. By the time you're in law school, we want you to be a team member of King Law. And all 36, we made offers, and we got them all but 3. Our growth, because I know where our growth has got to be, and I know what I want to get. You cannot run an ad and say, I want 100 new people. I hear attorneys all the time saying, I can't find attorneys. And I say, where the hell are you looking? They're in law schools. But you got to, I mean, that's what I do full time at this point. I'm out there working it and saying, like, look, making, doubling down on benefits. Change, if every employee at our place can get loan repayment for their law school. They can get, we have insurance for $49 a month, and I know Canadians, congratulations, all right. But I want to make it to where you come here and you found your place. And it's so important to be able to do that, because the growth that I want to have to get to 800 attorneys, and you lose 15% a year, you have to hire about 1,500 to get there. That's what the math is. So it's not, you cannot think, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be good and people will come to me. You got to be intentional about it, and you got to have a long-term plan. They don't make that decision on Monday and start with you the next week. They make that decision when they're 18 and they say, damn, that's the place I want to be.
Okay, and we have a quick question.
Can I say damn?
Yeah, my question is for Arik. Arik, as somebody who's an immigrant, came here when he was 13 and grew up in Brooklyn, I can relate to what you've been going through, as well as being, having single mother and stuff. And I can understand what adversity you had to overcome and all the hardship you had to go through just to get where you are today. My question to you is, and that's something I face almost every day, when you have somebody walking through your door, and it's a troubled child or delinquent or some kid who just got in trouble because he didn't have the right, he was at the wrong place wrong time at the wrong place, more or less, and you feel for that child and you want to help them, but they don't have the financial ability to pay you. What do you do? Because in the back of your mind, you realize you have to pay your bills. You have to grow your firm. You need those funds. You can't. Basically, we all live in a material world. How do you manage that? I mean, how do you make those decisions, like who you're going to represent pro bono, and how do you leverage that?
Sure. So I've had those situations before where clients have come to me and say, I can't pay the bill this month. I get that. We have families, we have obligations, other responsibilities. It's your willingness as an individual, as a lawyer, to work with them or not. Are you just going to cut them off, or are you going to work with them? Do you put them on payment plans? Maybe you write the last bill off as pro bono work. My decision to do pro bono work, which I do a lot of pro bono work, it goes back to the impact. What impact do I want to have in my community? If I see somebody coming through my door and they're really struggling, and I know they're not going to be able to afford my services, is it really about money at the end of the day? Do you want to be known for the lawyer that turned a case away just because someone couldn't afford, or do you want to have an impact in that community? And you doing that type of work, pro bono or low bono, will generate more clients down the line because you've done this work and you've done it in a meaningful way. You've treated this low bono, pro bono case just like you would a client that's paying you by the hour or on contingency. So it really comes down to you. What do you want to be remembered as? What do you want your legacy to be in those decisions?
I wish this panel was an hour. It really flew by, and unfortunately, we're at time. But Arike and Brian, thank you so much for joining us today. They both graciously said that they'll maybe join us outside for 10 to 15 minutes to answer other questions. But thank you.